You talked about voting rights. We know Senator Warnock yesterday expressed that he would like to see the Senate stay in as through the holidays. Senator Warnock on the Senate side talked about voting rights yesterday, staying here through the holidays to get it done, and really pressuring the White House and Senator Manchin to push for maybe a similar carve-out as we saw for the debt ceiling. Do you share that sentiment, and do you think that there needs to be more sense of urgency?
Senator Warnock's statement yesterday was, I just didn't hear what he said, was a beautiful patriotic statement about our country. He has been an inspiration all his life, and now as a member of the Senate. So I completely am inspired by and agree with what he said. I don't know. I've said I don't participate that much in the Senate rules discussions, but I do know that there are 3 members of the Supreme Court whom Senator Mitch McConnell got there with a simple majority by taking exception to a filibuster. So if those 3 people can have a job for life affecting the lives of the American people, I don't see why we couldn't have legislation that stops the voter suppression, making it harder for people to vote, and also now to end the election nullification. Probably, I mean, with stiff competition within their initiatives across the country for the worst, stiff competition for the worst, the election nullification is one that has attracted a good deal of attention, because if you're just going to say we'll have elections and 3 people.
Now, representatives from New York are calling on Congress to pass another stimulus relief package as the country continues to recover from the crisis. According to CNN, in a letter to the House Democratic leadership, a representative laid out why he believes another stimulus package is necessary. Our defense budget is $770 billion a year, but we are not doing enough to defend ourselves against the global crisis.
It's worked really well for the top 10%, hasn't worked for anybody else. People are using this tax credit to pay for rent, to pay for groceries, to buy school clothes for their kids, to pay for extracurricular activities for their children as well. And if this goes away in January, they're not going to be able to do any of that. And on top of it, inflation is cutting away at families' purchasing power.
This New York Democrat, everybody, is calling for more congressional action. In that $1.9 trillion bill, Congress provided stimulus checks and enhanced child tax credits, unemployment assistance, direct aid to states and in local cities. This bill outlines a new emergency supplemental program that should specifically address how the crisis is affecting children. It's made by Representative Jamal Bowman. Bowman also proposed the cancellation of federal student loan debts and the cancellation of housing-related debt for past due rent and mortgage payments. So the crisis has and will continue to change us for years to come, and we need to take action now, is what Bowman added. So the push from Bowman also comes as Congress has engaged in new spending on multiple fronts amid a long list of legislative agenda items that are still on its calendar. Congress recently passed a $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill and is in the process of trying to secure a separate $1.75 trillion social safety net bill, though its exact price tag could change amid negotiations in the Senate. The chamber is also facing increased pressure to pass a sweeping elections and voting bill during the same time. But when the March stimulus package was passed, many Democrats said that more government action would be needed to shore up the economy. Now, Republicans, however, have criticized Democrats' latest stimulus relief package and government spending as partisan wish list of liberal agenda items that are not sufficiently targeted. Soaring inflation has also become a political problem for President Biden. A key Democratic holdout, Joe Manchin, is concerned about the potential impact the bill would have on inflation. That is a problem for Biden, who needs all 50 Democratic votes in the Senate for the legislation to move forward. If passed, the spending aims to transform the nation's social safety net and combat climate change. The prices from everything at the pump to food at the grocery store have been on the rise for months, driven in part by crisis-induced supply chain bottlenecks. No one knows for sure exactly how the spending could affect inflation, but many policy analysts agree that the impact will be relatively small. Over 10 years, the Congressional Budget Office estimates most of the legislation will be paid for, but it will still add $367 billion to the deficit. The White House disagrees and has worked to make sure that the bill will be fully paid for when accounting for a proposal to enhance tax enforcement. Thank you again, everybody, for your support, and until next time, have a great day.
I described yesterday how inflation is hurting families all across our country. Since then, yet another key economic indicator has set an unfortunate record. In the last year, wholesale prices grew at their fastest pace on record. Anyone with a shred of sense knows this is the absolute wrong time to unleash a multi-trillion-dollar taxing and spending spree. Every single day brings new evidence our Democratic colleagues should give the country a break. But the cost of Washington Democrats' latest obsession isn't the only problem. The context of what they want to pass is actually just as bad. We've known since the start of COVID pandemic that Democrats saw it as an opportunity to transform American society. They've actually been quite candid about that. And the reckless taxing and spending spree they're riding behind closed doors is a Trojan horse to let the radical left dictate intimate details to American families. There's a long list of policies inspired by the authors of the Green New Deal, a whole slew of new programs and mandates aimed at fitting the entire country's systems for producing and consuming energy into sort of a California-shaped box. Special subsidies for expensive lifestyle choices like electric vehicles and electric bicycles. New red tape to strangle the most reliable and affordable sources of American industries, of American energy. Subsidies for supply chains that China dominates so that America borrows in order to build back Beijing. And don't forget the so-called civilian climate corps, just what we need at a time of inflation and labor shortages, a Potemkin make-work program for liberal activists. Of course, Washington Democrats intend to grab greater control over the development of America's young people long before they're eligible. Toddler takeover that insults the diversity of American families and their aspirations. It only throws money at a subset of secular child care centers that woke bureaucrats happen to favor. Forget faith-based options, forget flexible part-time arrangements, forget being remotely fair to families with a parent at home. Democrats want to bring their inflation into child care and make daycare more expensive, more inflexible, and more unfair. And then there's the latest offensive in a long campaign to restrict more of America's health care choices. Democrats' plan would mean more one-size-fits-all programs, more government control, a wet blanket over the world-leading innovation pipeline that creates new cures,